Hi, I'm Tiffany from Custom Service Hardware, and welcome to Tips from Tiff. Today, I'd like to show you how to have a beautiful jewelry box without having to pay a fortune for it. When looking online, I was looking at these beautiful distressed jewelry boxes, and they were upward to $100 or $200. I would like to show you how to do it yourself without having to pay that much. I bought this jewelry box at a salvage shop for $10. First way to save money. And it had a gloss on it when I originally got it, so I needed to make sure to go ahead and sand it down. I started with 100 grit, and then I finished it off with 180 grit sandpaper. The hardware that came with this jewelry box was really gritty and rusted out. So what I wanted to do was, instead of buying new decorative hardware, I just wanted to be able to polish up the old stuff. Again, another way to save money. I did have to make sure before using these specific ingredients that it was brass. So please don't put steel inside these ingredients, otherwise you're going to corrode it. So what I did was I used a mixture of lemon juice and baking soda, and it helped polish up the brass. As you can see here, this is a shot of before and this is a shot of after. It really polished up the brass, and I didn't have to do a lot of work for it. I just soaked it in the lemon juice and the baking soda, and then I rubbed it out. Inside the jewelry box is a really old felt that is tearing away. As you can see here, all I have to do is take the felt off. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the felt on the bottom with a nice beautiful black felt. So I'm going to go ahead and take the felt off. And as you can see, it does leave some red felt residue on the inside, so I am going to have to sand the inside walls of the drawer box. But other than that, it's not going to require much work. Once I do remove the felt and I sand down the edges, it's important to use my tack cloth to go ahead and rub down the sides to get all the dust off before I do any painting, and that's on the surface and that's on the inside of the drawer box. Now it is important. On the back of the General Finishes can, it says do not use a tack cloth. So why am I using a tack cloth? This is not an oil-based tack cloth. So if you're going to be using the General Finishes paint, please make sure that you read the back of the can before you start your project. It does say not to use a tack cloth, but I made sure mine is not oil-based, which would be the problem. Now that I've used the tack cloth and I've taken out my drawers, I'm going to go ahead and begin painting. I'm going to put on 2 coats of General Finishes Queenstown Gray paint. It is important to have at least 2 to 4 hours after each layer of paint to let it dry. And make sure you mix it very well. From what I hear, this paint goes a very long way. Now that I've applied 2 coats of General Finishes paint to the jewelry box, I'm going to distress it using 180 grit sandpaper and a sanding block. The sanding block is going to help with the surface areas, the larger areas of the jewelry box, while the sanding paper is going to help with more detailed areas. If you over distress the jewelry box, it's fine. All you have to do is apply more paint to that area and go a little lighter on the distressing. Now that I've distressed my jewelry box to give it that vintage look, I'm going to use a tack cloth to clean it off, and then we'll put the felt in. Okay, and with the felt, I bought the felt in sheets from a local hobby shop. When I originally got them, they were about the size of a sheet of paper. Very cheap felt. The great thing about the felt is there was such a wide selection. I chose the black to go with this simple, clean look, but you could choose so many different varieties to give that pop of color inside your jewelry box if you really want to. And the easiest way to measure the felt and get it to the right size that you need is I actually flipped the box upside down, and then I made cuts with scissors along the edges to know exactly how much felt I need to get it to fit inside the jewelry box. After I've put the felt in, the last step is just to put the knobs back into place. And as you remember, we polished up the brass knobs with the lemon juice and the baking soda. So they came out quite polished, quite nice. And I'm just going to screw them in here. It may take a little bit more effort when you initially put the knobs back in, just because you put a layer of paint over where the knobs were screwed in. But with a little elbow grease, you'll be able to get it in just fine. And here's the final result of our jewelry box vintage project. The jewelry box itself cost me about $10. I got the tack cloth for about $3. I did have intentions of using the quart of General Finishes paint, so that's why I got a quart, but you can get a pint for $17. And all the general products, such as paint brushes and the lemon juice, can cost about $10. All in all, it's going to be about $40 or less, depending on how many of the products you already have. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great time doing your own project. Join me next time on Tips from Tiff.